Those jam 15-minute cities. I was in your food supply. I even was in the air you breathe. I caused destruction upon the earth. All of you out to eat. You were on my clothes. Sing songs. You even do my dance. And pretty soon, you will be with me forever.
Coming up next, how far would you go for better security? How about an ID implanted in your arm? Who's actually asking people to do that? You might be surprised. Also, moving along now to tonight's eye-opener, what would you do if your boss said you had to have a computer ID chip implanted under your skin or you'd be fired? Well, we're not there quite yet, but one Ohio company is doing something that has some people wondering if we're headed down that road. Here's technology correspondent Daniel Seberg with tonight's eye-opener.
There's my chip right there.
So you can actually see it.
It's about the size of a grain of rice, and it feels like it too. But what that tiny chip can and can't do has become the source of much concern and confusion.
I was in a grocery store, and a couple ladies said, "Hey, you're the guy with the chip in your arm, aren't you? You know, run across the scanner so we can see if we get a discount on groceries."
Sean Darks is the CEO of CityWatcher.com, a small company in Cincinnati that's the first U.S. business to use chip implants in its employees.
What you're looking at here is recorded footage back in August of a number of drug deals.
CityWatcher provides video surveillance for clients and for the police. And the video that it collects, like this drug bust, is the company's biggest asset. And they say they need to keep it under more than just lock and key.
You might have one of these where you work, a key card that allows access to different parts of the office. A lot of businesses use them, but here at CityWatcher, there's one particular room where you need either the implanted chip in your arm or a keychain. And Sean says the choice is up to the employee.
CityWatcher employees Chuck Gordon and Kari Williams require access to the secure server room where the video is stored. One got the implant, and the other decided not to. He carries the chip in a keychain instead.
That's one of the reasons that I don't want to do it. It's creepy to have knowing that something is there the entire time.
But Chuck, you could get over that feeling?
Right now, I guess the big thing is Big Brother's to be watching you over this. Basically, the chip's dormant except unless you go in front of the access panel, and that's the only time it activates. So other than that, I really have no worries about it.
Chip implants have been common in pets for several years, giving the owner peace of mind that their lost animal could be identified. And for retail giant Walmart, the chips are used as smart barcodes to keep track of thousands of products. But for use in people, well, privacy advocates think we shouldn't open that door.
The concern is a privacy concern because when that chip is placed in you, it becomes a permanent form of identification. If it were a bracelet, for example, or an ID card, you might choose not to carry it or not to wear it, but if it's in your skin, you're pretty much stuck with it.
CityWatcher employee Chuck Gordon was so stuck on the idea that he accompanied his wife Mary as she got the implant for medical reasons.
Just go ahead and lay down up here for a minute.
So doctors can pull up a record of her allergies in an emergency.
You're going to feel like a little stick and then a bee sting, okay? And that's going to numb the skin up for us, okay?
At this point, if you're squeamish about needles, it's best to turn away for a second. Getting an implant is not a pretty sight.
Like a tiny little incision here. Put the needle in. We pull the needle out, and we put a Band-Aid on her, and she's chipped.
The doctor will send the unique 16-digit number on Mary's chip to the chip maker for safekeeping. But critics question the security of the system.
It is the case that chips have been hacked. It's possible to duplicate them. It's possible to commit fraud with them. And those are also risks for people who are using this chip.
3 out of the 5 City Watcher employees who need access to the video room have opted to have the chip implanted. The other 2 carry their chips on a keychain. Either way, Sean Dark says his company's secrets are safe, and let the chips fall where they may.
You can't be read, you can't be tracked, it doesn't have GPS, it doesn't emit a signal. I do not know where my employees are during the course of the day unless I call them on their cell phone. But we like to say here at City Watchers that it helps with employee retention because our valued employees don't want to leave their arm if they decide to leave the company.
Like it or not, we're in that brave new world, and it might not be long before your boss is literally getting under your skin. Daniel Seberg, CNN, Cincinnati.
So that gentleman at the end just mentioned what might happen if you leave the company. Well, if you don't want the chip anymore, you have to have it cut out. Ooh, ouch.
A man recently became the first person to get on a flight without a boarding pass. Instead, he used just a chip that was implanted in his hand. The Swedish man boarded the jet in Stockholm and posted the video on YouTube. The video also showed the process of implanting the chip, which is about the size of a grain of rice. The test subject is the vice president of a technology consulting firm. He says this was just an experiment and not necessarily something that's coming soon to airports. The London Telegraph reports the technology used in that chip has already been used to make digital payments, control mobile phones, and unlock doors.
The signing of one of the biggest trade deals in history has sparked a wave of protests. The fear is that the pact will grant sweeping powers to big business. The Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement includes 12 countries and must now be ratified before it can come into force. There were some arrests outside the signing ceremony in Auckland in New Zealand. It's a big deal as well. It covers some 40% of the world's economy. And the aim is it'll create an EU-style free trade zone by slashing thousands of tariffs between the signatory countries. Well, all well and good, but not everyone can be a winner, of course. Here's what some of the experts are saying might be the outcome. The treaty could have a devastating impact on the workforce, according to a report by some American economists. They say that the US will be the hardest hit, losing almost 500,000 jobs, while other countries in the agreement will only see, quote, negligible gains. Totally, job losses among the 12 nations could reach almost 800,000. The deal's also been slammed for a lack of transparency.
A few years ago, scientists manipulated the DNA of bird flu. They discovered by accident how to make the virus airborne between humans, revealing how a potentially unstoppable global pandemic could be engineered. Their research was made easier in part because the DNA sequence for bird flu had been digitised. So has the DNA sequence for Ebola, and they're both accessible on public databases. So is it possible to re-engineer Ebola as an airborne infection, or modify the virus so mosquitoes spread it? And just in case you think that's too far-fetched, listen to Dr. Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State University, who spoke at a Future of War conference earlier this year.
Digital biology would transform conflict, not immediately, but eventually, in ways well beyond anything we've ever experienced as a species, because we've never really had genetic weapons. The biologically based conflicts of the future would be wild by comparison. I'll wipe out your food supply, I'll wipe out your water, I'll wipe out your ability to reproduce, I'll wipe out your ability for your gene line to advance, I'll do this, I'll do this. I mean, I don't know how those kinds of conflicts will be dealt with, but it would be better to sort of confront them now before they're feasible.
But why are concerns about this new generation of biological research now coming to the fore? Partly because of the head-spinning expansion of what's become possible. All living things have DNA, the molecular basis of our individually unique genetic codes. It used to take a lot of time and money and big machines to genetically alter organisms. But now the awesome processing speed and storage power of computers has converged with the ability to turn DNA into bits and bytes and to modify its sequence. The ability to edit life itself, even to then create artificial new life forms in the lab and to mass produce it with diminishing costs.
Genetic engineering on a large scale has become suddenly possible with the advent of large computers, where all these component parts like Lego pieces are being stored, and then each of their function in a biological context is being explored. So it is possible that entirely novel organisms can be completely synthesized.
At least with nuclear weapons, the one thing that kept us safe is that it's very costly to produce them. But when it comes to digital biology, because it's computer-based, then these areas are much less costly. We could, in effect, think up properties that we might want, say, a microorganism to have, good properties or bad properties, figure out what genetic sequence you need, create the DNA for that, upload it, boot the thing up, and away you go. So we're at the cusp of that revolution, and we could achieve wonderful things for humanity, but terrible things as well. And that raises the whole question about who gets to regulate this, what happens if something goes seriously wrong.
And it doesn't take much to imagine how it could go wrong. You know, reality is catching up with science fiction when even the experts are quoting it.
It might sound scary like some sci-fi movie, or if you have just been looking at all these recent novels, Divergent series and so on.
Our founders created a system they believed would create lasting peace. They divided society into 5 factions.
A virus could be engineered to attack particular genes, like those of people with red hair, or those with black or white skin, or even to attack human fertility.
In the US, the main fear is that there could be an upsurge of eugenics or biological control of reproduction by certain ethnic groups.
This is Jason Bourne, toughest target that you've ever tracked.
Or the biggest, scariest GMO on the block might be genetically modified humans.
Someone started all of this, and I'm going to find them. The Jason Bourne syndrome, or the whatever, you know, it would be the modern versions of this. And so Hollywood has done a good job of showing us what some of these outcomes are, and we all pay to go to these movies, and they seem really interesting. Okay, well, at some point they'll actually be real.
Should there be more oversight of what research is being done? Should some of it be off limits, like working out how to create airborne Ebola?
For those people I know who work in this field, they are responsible people. They're generally moral people. I think the fear is that it only needs one unscrupulous or mad scientist somewhere in the world, and then we could be in danger.
The best protection against that is not more regulation, but more public knowledge, according to those who've opened Australia's first community biohacking lab in Sydney.
So BioFoundry is a do-it-yourself biology lab. We aim to engage the public with science by lowering the technological and cost barrier to studying molecular biology. So we use this machine to photocopy out DNA, in particular specific genes. It would enable you to be able to check for things like whether you have a certain breast cancer gene or whether you're going to go bald, for example.
Despite sourcing some equipment from dumpsters, the lab operates under strict government guidelines and does not deal with any dangerous pathogens or human tissue.
I think the word hacker has some pretty negative connotations, but biohackers have a really good safety track record. We aim to make science more open source and share our knowledge in a peer learning environment by educating the general public in genes and giving them a good understanding so that if anything did go wrong, we would at least have the tools to be able to fix that.
But there's a possibility of hacking by rogue governments or terrorists because most of the cutting-edge science is being done online.
There are already a lot of controls in places, certain higher levels of containment, so that these organisms don't actually leak into their environment or actually kill the researchers themselves. But the only problem is we are not sure how secure their own lab notes and data are, where they are stored, and whether hackers can actually get in and see what they are doing.
It's early days for this fast-developing science, which is why many experts agree it's the perfect time to question if there needs to be greater regulation and cybersecurity, and whether the Biological Weapons Convention is adequate. It bans bioweapons research, but it has little policing or enforcement. Might be time for a new generation of international oversight.
You couldn't see in South Jersey this morning. A lot of people heard or felt.
I felt the ground move under my feet because it froze me in place.
Tonight, they tell what it was like when the earth moved.
Yeah, and along with all that shaking, a lot of folks say they heard a string of loud booms this morning. Fox 29's Dave Kenshin asked people what turned out to be the talk of South Jersey today.
Normally quiet South Jersey towns like Vintner City, where I am now, had that quiet shattered by a big boom and the ground shaking beneath the feet of several people that live here. The big question, what on earth was it?
I was standing really right here. My wife was eating eggs, and I just froze in place.
Joe and Tara Longmore were enjoying a nice Saturday morning in their backyard when they say the craziest thing happened.
You heard this rumble, boom, 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 and it just felt right under our feet and kept going. It was just unbelievable. It rumbled like an earthquake.
It was a loud boom, and I'm not usually around things that loud.
That big mystery boom was followed up by 10 seconds of the earth rattling below.
I felt the ground move under my feet because it froze me in place, and I looked at my wife, and I actually started to look at the bay to think that the water was just going to start rolling around in crazy directions, or maybe even come over the bulkheads. I mean, I had no idea at that point what was happening.
They did not see any planes or anything out of the ordinary. Thinking it might have been an earthquake, Tara Longmore went to her laptop to do some digging and filled out a report with the U.S. Geological Survey.
It was totally different. Never felt anything like that.
But that didn't get them too far. Now the Longmores wait for a clue on what it was that put a jolt in their weekend.
I'm dying to find out myself what it is.
I spoke with officials at the United States Geological Survey. They say it was not an earthquake. Their equipment can only confirm that much, but the mystery remains, what was this whole thing? As soon as we find out, we'll let you know. In Vintner City, Dave Kenshin, Fox 29 News.
And this was the talk of so.
Severe storm slamming the south. At least 27 tornadoes reported in the Gulf states, and ABC's Lindsay Janis is on the scene in Pensacola, Florida. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning, George. The devastation here is incredible. A tornado ripping through this apartment complex, throwing debris over these cars. And look over here. The entire second floor of this apartment building sheared off. You can see right into people's living rooms.
Look up, look up.
More than 24 reported tornadoes tearing through parts of the Gulf states. Overnight, Pensacola, Florida taking a direct hit. As lightning illuminates the sky, you can see this massive funnel cloud moving in before cutting a 2-mile path of destruction.
The tornado just touched down. Within 30 seconds, 2 buildings are completely collapsed.
How did the tornado come?
This morning, the sheriff showing me these apartment buildings destroyed.
This is where we lean heavily upon state and federal agencies, and of course, thank God for, the Red Cross.
And in St. James Parish, Louisiana.
Oh my goodness, holy cow.
Watch as this enormous tornado completely obliterates this RV park. Winds tossing nearly 200 RVs. Ashley East stepping outside her camper as soon as it was safe.
I just immediately took off running to help people.
2 people killed and dozens injured. First responders searching for those who may still be trapped in the mangled mess.
We're hoping we could get down into those debris piles and try to find people.
Nearby, another twister tearing into this gym filled with people, ripping the wall right off the side of the building.
I started screaming, everybody get down, take cover.
A reported tornado plowing through Assumption Parish, Louisiana, too. Winds picking up this parked pickup and slamming it to the ground. This tractor trailer turned over. And check out these 3 tornadic water spouts over Lake Pontchartrain, just outside New Orleans.
Authorities are working to secure this site so that residents can come back and try to salvage some belongings. Miraculously, no one died and no one was even seriously injured here. Robin?
All right, Lindsay, thank you for that. But more now on those dangerous storms, and new warnings are out this morning, right, Sam?
Absolutely, Robin. Our hearts are with those people in Pensacola this morning. Saw some incredible damage, as you just saw in Louisiana as well. But where are those storms this morning? Well, they're already alive and kicking. And by the way, we've got that tornado watch out. It's for a good part of Florida. And watch this into South Georgia. Now, South Georgia, I want to tell you that we've seen some tornado warnings out in the last hour in that line of storm. So please pay particular attention to this, and then watch this. As that squall line continues to move east, look at the areas that'll see some strong winds, possible tornadoes, and even some hail. Raleigh, Durham, all the way into southern Virginia. I want you to watch that today. These storms are still strong as they move in at 6 p.m. D.C., Philly, you're in line for that squall line. Here's the only good news I have for you: Jersey, New York City, into New York State and Connecticut, and also into western Massachusetts. These storms weaken a little bit as they get to you by 10 p.m., but this is strong enough to make travel a nightmare. There are already delayed flights at many airports along the East Coast, and there will be today. Robin, George, Lara.
A lot for Sam to travel.
This next story sounded like a joke at first, but so far it appears to be legit. Thousands of citizens across the country are using a website to send petitions to the White House. Here's what they're asking for: permission for their state to secede peacefully from the Union. It appears to be some sort of protest over last week's vote. Trace Gallagher is live with details. Trace, is this for real?
Yeah, it really is for real. You know, the people who are signing the petitions, Shannon, are making it very clear, as you said, these are peaceful protests kind of aimed at showing just how frustrated they are with the direction of the country, mostly the bigger government, and the lack of spending restraint. So now there are hundreds of thousands of Americans in 20 states now that have actually signed petitions at whitehouse.gov. asking the president to allow their states to peacefully secede from the union. Now, the petitions themselves require 25,000 signatures for consideration, and Louisiana and Texas are getting very close to that number. Certainly the right to petition your government is guaranteed by the First Amendment, and the White House is encouraging free speech, saying, and I'm quoting here, "We want to hear from you. If a petition gets enough support, White House staff will review it, ensure it's sent to the appropriate policy experts, and issue an official response." They're not just talking about the secession petitions, they're talking about all petitions that are placed on whitehouse.org. No one is threatening, by the way, to secede or wage war on the U.S., but experts point out that we live in a very politically divided nation, and that, you know, the more of these peaceful protests you see leads to more fragmentation, possibly more conflict. On the other side, many argue this is the American way, and this is the way Americans should show that they are frustrated with the system. Shannon.
Something tells me Texas is going to get to that number first. We'll see.
Or Louisiana.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Trace.
In the skies over the valley. Right now, the military is in the middle of a big training exercise over Phoenix. For the second night in a row, people are calling the 3TV newsroom, wondering what's happening. And tonight, we have some answers. Karen Brown live in Phoenix now with a look at what's going on out there tonight. Karen?
Yeah, you know, Carrie, we've had so many phone calls into the station and the tweets that are coming in, people wondering why these blacked out helicopters have been flying around the valley. And as you take a look at some of the buildings downtown, what witnesses here are saying is that they were actually flying amongst the buildings, and now we know why. In fact, Phoenix PD confirming for us that the Department of Defense is conducting training exercises, trying to get military personnel certified in urban operations so that when they go overseas, they are prepared. Here's what one witness saw.
I mean, they were very close to the buildings. They were at different levels. They were at top of it. They would come down to the bottom part of it, you know, or middle way, I guess you'd say. And then they would go back up and they would take off and just fly. Then they would stop and go again.
Wow. And what did the helicopters look like?
It was hard to say because it was dark and they were blacked out. I mean, very few lights on them.
All right, and another live look here. In fact, we can tell you that these exercises will be going on here in Phoenix as well as Tempe, Mesa, and Scottsdale. They will end on the 22nd. This is a nationwide effort, so it's not just Phoenix. But again, folks are wondering what in the world is going on, and now we know. Reporting live from downtown Phoenix, I'm Karen Brown. Now back to you.
All right, Karen, thank you very much.